Hi, everyone. It's Mary here with My Art Dish. And today I'm so excited to have Nancie King Mertz with me to do our discussion. And tomorrow on July 13th, Nancie is going to be the guest artist at the Plein Painters Chicago. And so I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to learn about Nancie King Mertz and not so much about how she paints, but more about how she became Nancie King Mertz that we see in magazines and who she is. And this is just a delight to have some time with you. Hi, Nancie.
Hi, Mary.
Welcome. And Nancie, I'm so glad to have this time with you.
Well,
I just really want to spend some time just hearing about you, hearing your background and kind of how you came to painting, and we'll just kind of chat here. So
okay.
tell us your background. Where did you start?
Well, I started painting as a child, and my parents took me. I grew up in a very small town. My parents took me to another very small town where there was an art instructor, and so I began there. And when I was in high school, University of Illinois, which was nearby, offered extension classes. So I took painting classes in the summer, oil painting, and which gave me credits when I started at the University of Illinois
Nice.
as a painting major. So, went all through school, and I was going out plein air painting the farms and different things. Everybody else was in their studios painting all this abstract stuff that I couldn't relate to at all. So, it wasn't called plein air painting then, but I was painting representationally. And I was kind of an oddball because of that. But that's just what speaks to me. So I continue.
So do you still have your same setup? Do you still have your same easel?
No, I'm pretty rough on all that stuff. So I've had many easels since. But I took after I graduated from there, Ron and I married, and a year later I started graduate school in painting at Eastern, and taught there as a grad student, and then taught there on faculty. So I've just painted all my life.
Well, also that says to me that you have some real experience at being a teacher. You're not just doing workshops. You've really taught in an academic setting that probably they are giving you feedback, and it's a reason that you're a very good teacher.
Well, thank you. I took a long break from teaching after that. I started a business downstate, gallery and frame shop. We represented over 100 artists from the area. But it was when, craft was king. And when I sold the gallery down there, if I ever see another painted horse, wooden horse, I'm going to scream. So anyway, we moved to Chicago. Ron got a job here in Chicago, and I just really then focused on painting.
Mm-hmm.
And
and things still with oils mainly?
Yes, it was with oils. I kept the framing portion of my business, and then I would service it downstate once a month as I built the business in Chicago. And in '88, someone gave me a set of pastels. And I remember I was sitting waiting at the palette and chisel to talk about membership with someone. Richard Schmidt had asked me to come join as a member. And so I'm sitting in there working on a pastel, and one of the members said, "You can't do that in here. It's too dusty."
Oh, no.
So anyway, that was my very first. Anyway, I joined anyway and painted mostly in oil at the palette and chisel, and just did just a kind of a version from the oil painting. And then we formed this in around 2000. Scott was the investigator, and several of us joined him, and we really had a very strong group. We went out year round, where ski pants and heat packs in our shoes and gloves. Really, really enjoyed that experience, and so it's just it's just in my blood. blood, and um, I've I've chosen that route. We decided not to have kids just so I could really, really focus on painting. So
Yeah,
it's just
they are
been
your
devoted to it.
children, your paintings. Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's wonderful. And you know, as you've done this, so you've just mentioned two big names with Richard Schmid and Scott Tallman Powers in terms of Chicago. Do you have other influences, Nancy?
Well, I have all the Sargent books. I love Sargent's work. Fashion. Uh, I'm very inspired by Facebook, the incredible work I see on Facebook. That's really the only reason I signed up for Facebook, was just to scroll through all the art that's being created today.
Yeah.
Um, so there's lots and lots of influences, both in oil and pastel and watercolor. There's phenomenal watercolor painters.
You know, talk about your own art. Like, how do you, you talked about being representational, but I see you being impressionistic. And so how do you think of your art?
I would say it's impressionistic. And I think I start out with a more abstract approach, but then, as I work on the piece, it kind of gels and becomes more representational, but it still is impressionistic. It's more loose.
Mhm. Mhm.
People say it's fuzzy. But
And and as
I
you're,
think it's impressionistic.
it is, yeah. And I'm wondering if with your mix of oil painting and doing pastels, how do you decide what are you doing the decision before you go out to paint, or when you're there and you have
I
everything?
think it's more when I'm there. If there's, I'm really um, attracted to architectural elements. And if there's a lot of drawing involved, then I tend to lean more towards pastel. And and time is a huge factor. Pastel is so fast because you're just grabbing the color you need, grabbing the sticks you need, and quickly putting it down. There's no mixing of the paint. You just open your box and start.
Mhm.
And so I've become to rely more and more on pastel for plein air. And then I tend to do more oil in my studio. So, but still, I would say probably 2/3 of my work is pastel now versus
So,
oil.
and you've been getting quite a bit of recognition. I mean, and well-deserved recognition for your art. And talk about, and maybe what I'd like to do is kind of have you back up and talk about sort of the history of that, of how you got to be Nancie King Mertz, you know, in different magazines and but how did that happen? You know, in terms of your own sort of, I'm guessing, knowing, I guess from my own sense of marketing, that at some point you were promoting yourself. You didn't just get recognized kind of on at the five and dime as an artist, you know, sitting next to some agent or something. So my guess is you had to promote yourself somewhere at the beginning, and then something took hold, and from there, I'm sure you kind of go back and forth feeding that. But can you just talk about how that all happened?
Well, in in '79, when I was a student, I started a framing company and moved into this really cool building where there are other shops and so forth. And so we were in our town was kind of this area. And so, I was able to grow that business, and I just kind of got my legs under me as far as marketing and having events. And, I wasn't advertising really in magazines, although Country Living, because it was the rage was country at that time.
Yeah.
I did advertise some products in that magazine. So um, I don't know. as far as the painting goes, the artwork, that serious artwork, I would enter shows and maybe get an award or something. And I think that kind of brought some recognition. I started advertising in Pastel Journal and Plein magazine, and I've tried some of the other magazines, but those seem to be the ones that I fit into a little better, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And just having that presence, I think, has brought a lot of interest in having me teach. I can't say it's generated into lots of sales. It's just been more workshops and people knowing my name, especially in just the pastel world. Especially, there's just the oil world is huge, and it's hard to rise to the top there. So, but in the pastel world is small, very nurturing, and I think it's just been a little easier ride to get noticed there. And so most of my workshops are around the pastel medium. Sometimes I'll offer both, but it's pastel organizations that typically hire me to come in.
And as you've done that, what have you done to kind of I guess what I want to ask you about is you have a gallery now that's also a frame store, and how does that fit into all of sort of because most artists don't have their own gallery, which is certainly a plus, but how has that worked for you?
Well, again, back when I was in school, I started the frame shop because I knew I'd be painting a lot, and had a gallery downstate. And then when we moved to Chicago, I sold the gallery but kept the framing portion, and I would service that downstate as I was trying to build it in Chicago. So that's been really a wonderful thing to have, just because it's day-to-day revenue. We're open 7 days a week, and I might not sell a painting for a long time, but I do have people coming in on a daily basis to buy framing, and so I'm always marketing that as well as the gallery. And then hopefully you might want to buy a painting when they're in there. But
looks like I saw an email that just came through that you've reorganized the gallery, you've rehung, and so people are seeing probably your latest paintings. Is that right?
Yeah, I do a lot of painting every year, about 150 a year, and so so what's on the wall right now is the new work from this year, and I still have some travel to go, so I'll be adding to that. I'll be teaching a workshop in Italy for 10 days.
Oh, wow.
And that's both pastel and oil. So I'll have a lot of work from that workshop too on the wall.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so, and your travels for teaching, you have Italy. Do you have some other ones coming up as well?
I go to Cape Cod on Sunday to teach for a week and jury their show. Let's see, I have a workshop in Chicago in August. It's sponsored by UArt Paper. So they're going to provide paper for Pastels, and we'll be plein air painting in the Gold Coast area. Let's see.
Are these things that people can find on your website?
It's on my website under workshops and events.
Okay.
Registration is there. I don't organize the workshops. An organization handles all that.
Yeah.
I just sign up and say I'm happy to go. So,
I'm sure that people would like to know. You have your own sets of pastels, and now you're talking about the paper. So these become sort of sponsors for you. But did they come to you? Do you go to them?
They actually came to me. So again, I think it's through ads in the Pastel Journal and getting some awards at pastel shows. So it's the Richardson Company, which is a very generous company that manufactures the pastels in my name. There's 2 sets, and then UArt paper um, has to do little write-ups for their e-blasts, and they sponsor the workshop in August, and they provide paper. So both products I like a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure you wouldn't represent them if you didn't. So yeah, that's wonderful. And so as you're thinking about all this, is there some advice for painters? And I think at this point I'm thinking about maybe from this career standpoint. I'm 5 years into this. I'm nowhere near where you are. So any advice for us out there that are just being serious artists, and how we would, what path would you suggest for us?
Well, it's constant work, and you just, you have to think about it all the time. If you want to grow, you have to be painting, sketching, drawing all the time to improve your craft, no matter what level you're at. If you're from beginner to experienced painter, it's just, it's like playing an instrument. You have to keep the practice going and be very disciplined. As far as marketing your work, that takes a huge chunk of your time, and so you have to balance that. You have to determine what your market is, what the market will withstand as far as price and subject matter and so forth. So there's just a lot of pieces that you have to try to figure out, and there's no formula as far as I know. I've always just kind of blown by the seat of my pants, and I think having had a business most of my life, it's helped me, certainly.
Yeah, you certainly learn a lot in that business sense of how to negotiate with people, how to think about what the opportunities are, and how to make decisions of where to spend time. I know in my own business that I had that, somebody said to me, "Don't spend time on, designing or picking out stationery. That's not the important thing."
Yeah, and you need a break from some of these decisions, and so you do get lost in cleaning out a drawer, or doing very mundane tasks just to give your brain a break. But it's just I don't know, you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and boosting yourself up. And
that to me is actually unfortunately a very good thing to hear. And I'm sorry that it's so much work for all of us, and then especially for you, who is there at the top of the the world here. But but it's all about continuing to do the art, to keep at your craft, and it's also this constant sort of spreading your time into these different areas, like marketing yourself or your work, which are two different things.
Yeah.
And also maintaining your credibility, so your visibility and credibility, all those things, just to have sort of a strategy for those.
Right. Yeah, you just have to show up, and you have to follow through on the promises you make, and be there for people, whether you're there for students or for an organization or a show. You just have to be trustworthy and dependable, and that just carries through into all aspects of your life.
Yeah, that's right. So in terms of I just want to go back to your teaching just a little bit, but also advice for painters, for all of us, as they come to your classes. What's the process you hope that a student will do when they come to you? And what kind of a mindset, and then what they do while they're with you and after they leave you?
Well, it's, every instructor hopes that a student comes with an open mind and a willingness to experiment with the technique. And that's why they're taking the class. I don't expect a student to take on that technique or style, but certainly everybody has their own style, and it's important to develop your own voice. I think it's kind of scary when people take a lot of workshops and they get really confused on which direction to go. You just need to see what speaks to you and follow that path, and just create your own style that people will say, oh, that's very long, or so and so. So when I teach a workshop, I usually start out the day with a demo, maybe hour and a half at the most, and then people start painting, and I go from person to person. So it's very much one-on-one. I try to help them with perspective. That's kind of my long suit, is getting structures correct in composition and design, so forth. So I really try to help them with that. And I do both plein air and studio workshops. So if it's studio, they're working from some photos they've brought, or I always go ahead and of the class and scatter around the area and take photos and print them out so people can use those if they need to. So, I just make suggestions and help them with their drawing and composition. Try to get the perspective right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And how about after they've, left you? Do you have a thought of what you'd like them to take away from your classes?
Well, especially with the pastel classes, I have a very rapid method of getting work done, and I think that they all feel that they have gained confidence and they're able to paint more quickly. They're not as tentative, and pastel medium is so that can get painting done more rapidly and quickly. So I think that's kind of their takeaway. Pieces they've done after a workshop, that their work has greatly improved. So,
Yeah.
And that's just because they've continued to work, not because I did that much for them, but they've just continued with the process and grasped what I tried to share.
One of the things I've noticed for myself is that during class, it's kind of what you were saying before about taking a lot of classes. So I have taken a lot of classes, and actually, personally, right now, I'm kind of on a little bit of a hiatus because I felt like I needed to let all this kind of settle somehow.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things is in the class, I think I spend part of the class trying to figure out how that fits into my painting style. And then when right, and so it never starts well. and sometimes the class is over before I can finally get to it, and so it's sort of listening to you. It's kind of like, this is really helpful in a way, or it feels good to to know that it's not just me, but that is one of the things that happens, that it just is trying to put that into my own kind of quiver of art weapons.
Yeah. Every few years, I'll take a workshop from someone whose work I really love, and you start out and you think, they're going to think I can't paint at all. It's just when there's a different approach, it just makes your brain wig out, and
it's kind of like this performance anxiety,
Yeah, exactly.
I found too of going to the open studio to be able to just paint without anybody looking over my shoulder. Just is so much. I don't know. That gives me a place to be able to try. Just to keep on going and experimenting and things, as opposed to trying to do it.
I used to love to go there, and I just don't get there anymore.
Yeah. So. Well, I've just really discovered it, and partly because I'm now doing a few more portraits, but as well as plein air. So what else do you have coming up? I know that we should probably, what do you have? Any exhibits besides the things that are in your gallery?
Well, I send pieces out to shows around the country. So I'm in different exhibits. There's one in California and one in Ohio right now at a couple of museums. So I was thrilled to get into those.
Can I just stop you there and ask you about that? So you look for those kind of opportunities where, and then you will submit them for those?
Yeah, it's just, like a call for artists. And it's a juried show, like any juried show that you enter. You get in some and don't get in most. It's just, so yeah, I get emails in, or I'll see, a call for an artist in the back of a magazine or something. And if it sounds like it's a reputable show, I might enter. So I'm shipping paintings off at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, to different shows. So
yeah. Do you have any advice? This is like a really quick how-to about shipping off paintings.
Well, now people are almost always requiring that they be shipped in a strong box or air float box. So it gets so expensive to ship to these shows. So make sure that there's a good purse for the prize money in case you win something. It might cover some of your costs for shipping. But you pay a lot for the box, and then you pay a lot to ship it, and then you pay an art handler to unpack it, store the box, and take it to the venue. So you have to be prepared to spend some money to get into some of these better shows. So
yeah. What's the range in costs for that? I have no idea.
Well, the art handler is usually over $100 each time, and the shipping is $75 each way. The boxes are, I don't know, $60.
Wow.
So yeah, so it really does add up. But sometimes you can win $1,000. So
yeah. Have a little to spend on a cup of coffee or something. Yeah.
Right. It just adds to your resume if you get in a show, and then if you win an award, it adds more. So I kept submitting shows to the International Association of Pastel Societies and kept getting in those shows, and then I would win an award and so forth. And so this year they made me an eminent pastelist, which there's 14 in the world.
Yeah, that's just congratulations. It's wonderful.
I don't know who was doing the math on that, but I was thrilled.
You should be, and I hope you take it in. It's very nice and really well deserved.
Well, thank you. But it's just, again, putting one foot in front of the other, and hoping.
Do you have any other goals? Do you have another goal that you, as an artist, for recognition or the Smithsonian?
Yeah, right. Well, I read a lot about artists that have solo shows in museums. That would be a really fine thing. So the Butler Museum in Youngstown, Ohio has a pastel gallery in their museum, and I've had pieces in a group show there several times. So I mean, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
To have a one-person show there, but might have to be dead. I'd rather not be.
Yeah, I'd rather you not be too.
Yeah.
Let's make that happen. So I was asking you before about if you have any other anything else on your calendar that we should know about.
Well, just lots of workshops. 2020 is pretty much booked.
Wow.
In May of 2020, they've invited me to be the guest of artists in Givergny, France, where Monet lived. And
Nancie,
I have an exhibition there and teach a workshop and paint in the gardens. So that's for a week, the latter part of May. And I think a lot of people people are over and we can all paint together. And I don't know if they'll take the workshop. I think the workshop is more for the French pastel group. But anyway, just being there to paint together would be phenomenal.
How wonderful.
So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so, you know, I think you're right there in your studio. Is that right?
I am.
Can you show us?
Little studio.
Yeah. Can you show us any of your studio?
Well, I have an oil set up on one side and a pastel set up on the other. And I have artificial lighting above, but I do have a set of windows. My Skype thing is attached to my monitor, so I have to move the monitor. But okay. I do have windows. They're east facing. And then my oil set up and pastel setups over here.
It's not like you have a lot of room. You're backing up into the next painting. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a small bedroom size. So it's not big. And then I have a lot of shelves and that takes up a lot of space. So
yeah.
This winter, I'm hoping to really go through stuff and weed it out and move out a set of the shelves just so I have a little more elbow room. So, you know how we all collect all these materials. Yeah. It just mushrooms.
But the thing is, you know how to make that space work. That's amazing.
A lot of baskets. My husband calls his place the International House of Baskets. Put everything in a basket. Try to organize it.
Yeah, well, that came from that country theme back then.
Yeah, right.
I don't see any wooden horses here, so.
Oh, yeah, no.
That's good. Well, Nancie, I've really enjoyed spending some time with you. Is there anything else that you'd like to say that we'd like to know about?
Well, I look forward to painting with you tomorrow, Mary, and the group, the Plein Air Painters of Chicago group.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to it. We're going to be at Oak and Orleans under the L, which is sort of an interesting area. And we are doing the CTA series this year. We thought it would be good for us to have a couple themes kind of. And this is one that's not just, it's not a station. It's really a wonderful overpass of the L and on an area that's one that I'm glad we're painting in because it has just this other feel to it. Yeah.
There's amazing textures and light and structure. So be a good perspective challenge for people.
Oh, great. So that sounds like what the theme is for tomorrow for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great.
Thanks,
well,
Mary,
we'll
so
see you in
much.
the morning. Yes, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.